The Belgian king promises to return artworks illegally taken from DR Congo by his country's soldiers. Vendors at the Serekunda market decry over the poor sanitary situation of the market. And the cost of gas and fuel in Ethiopia triggered dissenting reactions among citizens. Well, this and more coming ahead on The World Today. Hello, this is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching The World Today News, bulletin live from our studios in Banjul. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail, and we begin matters in TRC because the Belgian king and queen paid a historic visit to the DR Congo as part of efforts to foster relations between the two countries following Congolese authorities' demand for the return of their artworks stolen by the Belgian soldiers between 1900 and 1960. President Tshisekedi, alongside the visiting royal family, attended a cultural festival at the country's National Museum where they unveiled an ancient mask created by a Congolese local artist. The decision to return the rest of the artworks has been welcomed by the citizens. Here is more details of that in this report.
A historic visit to the DRC by the Belgian royal couple. King Philip and Queen Mathilde were joined by President Tshisekedi and the First Lady for a cultural ceremony at the DRC's National Museum. The Belgian king and the DRC president unveiled an ancient mask created by an artist from the ethnic Suku group.
This is a symbolic step which marks the beginning of the improvement of the cultural relations between the Kingdom of Belgium and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Thousands of Congolese statues, ivory masks and musical instruments were taken from the DRC by Belgian soldiers between 1900 and 1960. Many of them are displayed at Belgium's Africa Museum. In 2019, the DRC president demanded the return of the artworks.
The artworks that were illegally acquired by Belgian soldiers and collectors during the colonial period will be kept in this museum in Kinshasa when they are handed back to Congolese authorities. A commission has been set up in Belgium to identify the stolen artworks and start the process of returning them.
The decision to return the artworks has been welcomed by many people in the DRC.
And I think this is the beginning of a new era, which we're going to live to respect each other because we are independent. And we want Belgium to understand that we are free, we are sovereign country, and we want to live in partnership with Belgium than thinking that we're still in colonization.
King Philip's visit to the DRC comes 2 years after he wrote a letter to President Tshisekedi expressing his deepest regrets over the abuses committed by his country during the colonial period. The reign of his ancestor, King Leopold II, was marked by the killing of about 10 million Congolese. Some of the locals hope his visit will address the current security challenges the country is facing.
We want the relationship between Belgium and the DRC to go back to normal. It should be based on honesty and mutual respect. Our country was recently attacked by our neighbour, but Belgium didn't say a word. That shocked us. It's like we're still in the colonial days.
The Belgian king is set to hold a ceremony in the DRC parliament and deliver a speech to university students in the southeastern city of Lubumbashi on Friday. His visit was scheduled to take place in June 2020, but it was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
And that report is coming from DRC. Now, the Serekunda market vendors on Wednesday lamented over the poor sanitation in the market area. Now, the piles of waste and stagnant water are their major concern of the market vendors. Now, it has led to the vendors overcrowding the market's cleansing parks due to the fear that the unhygienic condition of the market could impact their health as well as the food they sell to the public. Moses Imendi has the details in this report.
ahead of the Kanifing Municipal Council's entire city cleanup activity. Vendors at the Serekunda market have been voicing frustration over the poor market sanitation. The disposed stockpile of waste inhabited by termites and stagnant waters in parts of the market is resulting in the emanation of stench that spreads across the area, with the potential of posing health hazard to both vendors and market goers. Consumables are also exposed to these unhealthy environmental conditions. Aji Sose is a vendor at the market and she speaks of their challenge.
If you come and meet us selling and you are a person whose mind can't contain dirty, you look at the mbalit and our fish and the flies, you will not be able to buy. Just look at the mbalit and combine it with smell. We are paying duty. Bro, we are tired in this market. We pay $10 as duty every day. Just now the tax collector came and forced me to pay. I told him I am yet to sell anything yet, but he insisted. So I paid him. That is painful. We need someone to come and help us to remove this mbalit here for God's sake.
Mrs. Sose said the situation is now getting out of hands and insisted that time is ripe to confront the Kanifing Municipal Council about the situation because the vendors are daily taxpayers. She also complained that the waste collection trucks are not doing their job and insisted that if the council is incapable of doing its job, then it must be replaced. Nyaling Sama also decried the poor sanitary state of the market and voiced concern about the vendors' health.
If you look at this place, it is full of termites. Every morning we pour odosabel here to be able to sit. We have nowhere to sit, and it is because this place has not been worked on. If the place was worked on, termites will not be here. Help us by reporting this. If this place is not clean, there will be no good health.
She called on the city council to step in and salvage them because the market vendors are tired of being exposed to such appalling sanitary conditions. Mohamed Sar explained that they have to cope with the stench situation at the market because they do not have any other choice and there is where they earn their living. So many people occupy the market. They make a living from it, but if you leave Mbalitka in the midst, they will inhale the smell. That is not nice. Someone passed here the other time and took video because of the condition that we are living through here. Sometimes you see someone passing, hold their nose to block the smell, but us, we are experiencing it consistently and that is not nice. If you see us bearing with this, is because there is no other choice. He called on the city council to invest the taxpayers' money to make the market environment cleaner and safer. Maimuna Abbas said the market enabled them to feed their families and fund the education of their children.
KMC should help us with beans. They should provide 2 beans. 1 bean is not enough for this place. When you want to dump the mbalit and the bean is full, they send you away. But at night, people will come and ditch their waste. If this mbalit is not from the market, it is the people in the community who came and ditched their mbalit here at night. The water is rain water. The workers have not reached here, but when they reach here, water will be gone.
Lamin, a tailor at the market, viewed the situation as a disrespect to market workers, saying the city council's commitment to cleaning the area is lacking. He explained that waste collection trucks prefer going into the communities to collect waste because there the price per sack is higher than at the market. Moses Mendy, Eyeafrica News.
Vendors at the Serekunda market are lamenting over the poor sanitary condition of the market, and we hope The cleansing exercise taking place on Saturday would remedy their concern. Now moving on, Egyptian authorities are widening their efforts to respond to the growing global food crisis amid the ongoing Ukraine-Russia conflict. Now, the North African country has begun the importation of essential commodities such as wheat from different countries, including India, to meet the demand of their people. Now, despite the adopted mitigating measures, some experts warn that the country needs to minimize its consumption. Let's have more details of that in this report.
About 80% of Egypt's wheat imports comes from Russia and Ukraine. It also imports 98% of its vegetable oil needs, 70% of which comes from the same two countries. The Russian-Ukrainian crisis shocked the global supply of food items, making Egypt vulnerable. But luckily, the COVID-19 pandemic had Egypt well prepared for this conflict.
Officially, before the pandemic, we only had enough wheat in our reserves to last us 6 weeks. The disruption in the supply chain during the pandemic made Egypt increase its reserves by up to 4 months. The domestic wheat season luckily is here, and the government is trying to collect a further 5 million tons to add to its current reserve.
We are diversifying our import venues to different countries. Like you have seen, we have started importing from India in order to secure our need of our population from strategic products. In addition to that, we have taken a few months ago a strategic direction. His Excellency the President had directed the government to secure adequate amount of reserves in all strategic foods. So we have reserves up to the end of this calendar year.
Bread is the #1 item on Egypt's staple food programs. 88% of the population are on bread subsidies, which cost the government some $3.3 billion. And while Egypt has secured its needs of the strategic grain for now, if the Russian-Ukrainian crisis lasts longer, some experts believe that the country will need to reduce its consumption to face the expected wheat shortages.
This is the only way to overcome the crisis, because the global wheat supply has been greatly reduced. Countries like India are restricting and banning their wheat exports. It's very important that Egypt moves to reduce wheat consumption. The average wheat consumption in Egypt is 180 kilograms per capita. The world average is 80 kilograms. And there are many reasons for that, including government subsidies, which see people buying a lot of bread.
Meanwhile, Egypt is planning to increase its wheat production to cover up to 65% of its needs next year.
We are a big country, and especially with a big population of 103 million population. So it is important to increase the area of agriculture for cultivated land. We aim to increase by 1.5 million faddan, and this is an increase in space. This is an horizontal increase, and also we're working on the vertical side in terms of enhancing and innovating new ways and new methods of irrigation in order also to increase the amount of crops that are cultivated from this land.
Combined, the advanced irrigation techniques and the expansion in wheat cultivated land are expected to increase production from 9 million tons up to 14 million tons in 2023.
The current food crisis is toppled with a spike in oil prices and the economic repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic. Last month, the Egyptian Prime Minister said that the economic impact of the Russian-Ukrainian crisis is the worst the country has seen in decades. And the Middle East office of the World Food Programme says it's the worst the region has seen since World War II.
That report there is coming from the Egyptian capital, Cairo. Moving on, the Kenyan economy has been dwindling largely due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent conflict in Ukraine. Now, this African country's inflation rate increased by 7% in May, which affected different sectors of the country's development. Now, according to some analysts, the economic downturn has triggered soaring prices of food commodities across the country. Here's more details of that in this report.
Kenya's economy has been blowing hot and cold over the years, and the COVID-19 didn't make it any better. And according to Central Bank of Kenya Governor Patrick Njoroge, Kenya's economy is poised to grow at 5.7% in 2022 compared to 7.5% in 2021. Now, key drivers of the industry, of course, the main indicators show that education system, transportation, hotel industries are now back from the shackles of COVID-19. But there's one thing, inflation is biting hard in the country. So what's the relation between economic growth and inflation in Kenya? Kenyan inflation moved closer to the ceiling of the central bank's target range in May as prices of food and basic goods, including laundry soap, soared. The government has said an inflation target ranged between 2.5% and 7.5%.
Inflation to growth, etc., really all those things, the channels are clear, right? But I think the most important one that I would put out there is consumer confidence. And indeed also confidence of investors. It shows that really the macro is, the macroeconomics or the macroeconomy is sort of out of work, meaning weak.
According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the annual inflation rate climbed to 7.1% from 6.5% in April. That's the highest level since February 2020. Experts warn the high cost of living is now being felt across the country.
Our economy is designed in such a way that there's a small proportion of people that you can almost say hold quite a big chunk of our GDP or our economy. Then there's this many people who benefit or have a very small proportion of it. And now those are the people who, when they hear that the economy is growing by 5.7%, wanashanga, they wonder what you're talking about, because for them money is less and less in their pockets. For them, when they want to go out there and buy things, prices keep going. And in people's minds, economic growth is supposed to mean that we have more money or things are cheaper and stuff like that.
According to new projections by the African Development Bank, Kenya's real GDP growth will next year trail the performance of its East Africa community partners, except Tanzania and Burundi, partly hurt by inflationary pressures.
There has got to be a lot of caution when we are throwing it out there and saying the economy grew by this percent. Let's come down to looking at these basic things that affect people's lives. Have incomes increased, have more meaningful job opportunities increased.
The effects of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has led to a surge in the cost of fuel and basic commodities, is beginning to hurt many economies in Africa. Majority have now been forced to cut back spending on non-essential items and are hoping the situation will improve quickly so that they can have an extra income which will improve the purchasing power.
And the report is coming from Nairobi, Kenya. And of course, with that, we will now take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us, we'll be right back. This is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching the World Today News bulletin live from our studios in Banjul, and once again many thanks for joining us. Now, motorists in Ethiopia have been lamenting the skyrocketing gas and fuel prices in the country, saying this will disrupt their activities and family well-being. Authorities of this African nation said the rise in cost of fuel and gas is due to the hikes in the global market, whilst the government sets to subsidize the cost of fuel. Inflation prices are also on the rise. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Long queues of motorists have been witnessed around gas stations across the capital Addis Ababa amid fuel shortages that have been blamed on supply chain disruptions and sometimes due to hoarding. But this is not the only issue these vehicle owners are having to grapple with. The government has recently announced an increase in the price of gasoline and regular benzene, which has soared to a record high. Authorities have blamed the rising global oil prices for its decision to institute the latest price hikes.
The price of diesel and gas has significantly risen from between $730 and $870 per ton in December and increased to $1,138 last month. That is a huge increase which is inevitable, impacting every sector.
Based on the new revised prices, gas will rise to almost 40 birr, which is about 75 US cents per litre, while a litre of diesel will be sold at close to 62 US cents, up from 53 US cents per litre. Vehicle owners say the hiked gas price will seriously affect them and their families.
Everything in this country has seen a price hike due to rising fuel prices. Due to the new price, every single thing we buy shows a significant price increase. It's really difficult to lead a daily life.
Our daily spending has increased beyond words. This is to do with the gas price hike. This has exacerbated the already existing problems caused by the pandemic. The skyrocketing living cost has a collective impact on the society. We understand the situation, but still, it's painful and must be tackled with a collective effort exerted by both the people and the government.
For about 4 months, the price of petroleum products remained constant until the recent price rise was announced. Authorities say the country will now spend up to $2 billion for subsidies, including gas purchases due to the conflict in Ukraine. According to the latest data released by Ethiopia's Central Statistical Agency, the inflation rate in Ethiopia rose to a record high of 36.6% in April, up from 34.7% in March. And a slight rise is also expected when data from the month of May is released. Despite the surge in the cost of living, economic predictions made by global financial institutions show a positive growth trajectory for the current fiscal year. It's hoped this economic advancement will ultimately impact Ethiopian citizens' lives positively.
Report that is coming from the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa. On to our final story now, the Gambia Red Cross Society, in partnership with the Spanish Red Cross and the European Union, will disburse up to $21 million to the tourism sector's informal associations and individuals. Now, the project will support beneficiaries to restart or diversify their business, while each of the selected 8 associations is to build or renovate their damaged structures that were caused by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Moses Amen with the details in this report.
The European Union funded cash grant will be implemented by the Gambia Red Cross Society and the Spanish Red Cross. The COVID-19 Livelihood Project will also support and strengthen public health and socio-economic systems to reduce the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in the Gambia. As part of the project's main goal, the Gambia Red Cross Society will disburse a cash grant amounting to $21 million to 415 individuals and 8 associations in the tourism industry. $37,000 will be given to each individual member, while $510,000 will be provided to each of the 8 associations in the industry. Corrado Pamploni, EU ambassador to the Gambia, said the project was developed in the context of protecting vulnerable groups following the pandemic and to also tackle long-term development issues. He speaks on the essence of the cash assistance program and identified the priority groups.
The cash and voucher assistance program also addresses the most affected small and medium business by providing guidance to adapt career paths to changes in labor and market needs, providing technical assistance for business plans and in-kind support, and lastly, by supporting the community microfinancing system, the saving groups. Due to the vulnerability of the tourism sector in the Gambia to external shocks, the Tourism Association identified the following priority groups: Juice Pressers Association, Fruit Sellers, the Hairdressers Association, Craft Vendors Association, and Federation.
Ambassador Pamploni said a gender lens was applied because women are the hardest hit economically by the COVID-19. Alassane Senghor, Secretary General of the Gambia Red Cross Society, highlighted the strategy of the Red Cross Society in the Livelihood Project.
Red Cross, since the beginning of the COVID, we did have a strategy, and our strategy was twofold. The first was to respond to the health emergency, which is to save lives and also to cut down the transmission. The second part was to look at the medium and the long term. And for the medium term was basically to help families, affected families, and in terms of their livelihood. And we did disburse some funds to families, households, to help them to survive through the COVID. Now, the link to that, and that's why we are here today, is basically to do cash grant, to look at the long-term implication. As you know very well that COVID had a lot of negative effect on the tourism sector.
He said his office has provided training for the beneficiaries and worked with them to develop project proposals that underwent a scrutiny and approval process. Mr. Senghor said the cash will be provided to support the beneficiaries to rebuild and diversify their businesses. Hamad N.K. Bah, Minister of Tourism, described the effort as a milestone in supporting those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
As I said, everybody was a victim and still a victim, but the tourism industry and workers became the most victims. Some of them have lost families. I remember that during the period I used to meet some of them, some of them lost marriages. Some families got broken because it was, and it is still very tough. It's not an easy one. And I believe that this intervention will also help alleviate, not completely, but at least give another breathing space for those who have been severely affected in the industry.
He urged the beneficiaries not to invest the money on wrong purpose, but rather improve and expand their businesses. Minister Bah revealed that the government is working with the World Bank on a project that, if successful, will be the biggest single check the bank ever gave to any ministry in the country since independence, adding that it will be a game changer for the tourism sector. The Livelihood Project will strengthen the health sector by providing personal health and laboratory equipment, as well as protect the most vulnerable communities against the effect of the pandemic by supporting families in access to food and essential needs with monthly distribution of food and cash based on the beneficiary needs. Moses Mendy, Eyeafrica News.
And the report there by Moses Imendi eventually brings us to the end of this news edition. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on Eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching and do have a pleasant evening. Bye for now.